believe in eternity. There is evidence of his existence, according to the psychic lawyer Mark Anthony. It's the topic of his new book, and he joins us now to tell us more about it. And in just a few minutes, he's going to give a colleague of mine a reading himself. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Christine. It's great being on atl&co.
We'll talk about the evidence of eternity. You write about it growing up, being psychic. What was that like? When did you realize you first had the ability?
I was about 4 years old, and I started having the proverbial invisible friends. But what was cool about it is both my parents were mediums. It runs in my family on both sides, both sides for generations. So my mom was like, oh, this is cool. And my dad was like, uh-oh.
Oh, no, right. Now, what was it like growing up with parents who were mediums? Well, what's that experience like for you?
Well, I couldn't get away with much as a teenager.
I bet. The way it should be, yeah.
But it was really quite fascinating. When I was young, I didn't think anything of it. But then when I started getting about junior high school age, I realized not everyone's mom and dad are quite like this.
Right. And talk about what it really means, will you, to be a medium?
I'm a psychic medium, which means that I can tune into the energy of a third party, meaning a spiritual entity. Right. In other words, I communicate with the other side. See, they're knocking already. They're knocking on our door already.
What's going on? Right. So, and that's what it's more about, is being able to communicate, and of course, like you're going to do with John,
right.
Hopefully getting the vibe or the spirit in the room and being able to actually communicate what they want you to say.
In a nutshell, we exist in one frequency. In other words, the material world, they exist in another. Think of the difference between AM and FM radio.
Right.
We're in AM, they're in FM. And in Evidence of Eternity, I introduce a lot of new terms and concepts to bring our understanding of spirit communication into the 21st century based on science, theoretical physics, human physiology. So this isn't a woohoo airy-fairy book.
Right.
This actually has a logical basis to explain how this happens.
Fantastic. Okay, but go back to the psychic lawyer part of this. It seems like polar opposite professions, and have you ever actually had an instance where there was a conflict, your lawyer side versus your medium side?
I never really found it a conflict. It's part of my skill set, being able to discern people and situations. It particularly has come in handy during jury selection, which is the part of trial before we actually start introducing evidence, and I can pick up things about people. In my first book, Never Letting Go, I go into a pretty heavy story about something I picked up on a juror, and I actually had a foot in both worlds because someone connected with her started coming through who had been murdered. And I mentioned that, and it turned out to be a very emotional thing for her. So in Evidence of Eternity, I explain how grief can lead to crime, which can lead to grief. So a lot of my clients that are drug addicts, alcoholics, impulsive behaviors, in their developmental stage, Christine, they have an unresolved death. So what I do when I pick up on that is I get them into grief counseling.
Right.
They need to deal with that to free themselves from this prison of addiction and predatorial behaviors.
Wonderful. So it all kind of comes full circle.
It does.
And talk about any particular story or any instance where you communicated with somebody that's most memorable to you?
Oh, God, there's a lot.
I know there's a lot, I'm sure. How much time do we have, right?
Right. I remember, and this is not in my book, this I wanted to share with you today. I had this woman come to me. Her husband was a doctor. She was very affluent, yet she kept getting arrested in fine retail stores, stealing.
Shoplifting.
And it wasn't anything expensive. It was usually costume jewelry, really cheap things. And when I was talking to her, I started feeling a male presence around her that felt like a father. And I said, did you lose your father when you were really young? The tears, and she started to shake, and she said, my father died when I was about 4. He didn't want me. And all of a sudden, it wasn't this very affluent woman, but the frightened little girl. And I got her into grief counseling, and she found out that the reason that she engaged in these behaviors, she was getting a high.
Sure.
That because of her unresolved grief.
Right.
And since that time, I haven't seen her, so that's a good sign.
That's a great sign. And I know we want to make sure everyone knows where to get the book, so tell us that.
Well, tonight I'll be at the Phoenix and Dragon bookstore on Roswell Road here in Atlanta, so it's on sale there.
Great.
It's on sale worldwide at all fine bookstores like Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, independent stores. You can order on Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and I guess I've arrived because I understand it's also on eBay now.
Nice. Good job. Well, coming up next, Mark is going to go into the Beyond with one of our coworkers, John, and share how you can meet him, which he just told you that. But if you missed it, they'll give you a chance to write it down and give you all the details of that. That's later tonight. Like you said,
7 p.m.
Signing, 7 p.m. We'll be back with that in just a bit. Mark Anthony is back. He's ready to give one of our coworkers a personalized reading. Take it away.
All right. Now, it's important to realize that a lot of things that happen in a reading don't necessarily make sense until later on. Now, there's a male energy coming through, and what I'm getting with him is I'm getting this sense it was very difficult breathing, and I'm getting this almost seizure sensation in the chest. Now, his passing seemed like it was quite a bit quicker.
Okay,
Is that a yes?
Yeah, could
okay.
be my
could be your father?
Could be my dad, yeah.
Okay. Now, what I get about him is that he had a very logical mind, and I'm getting facts, figures, data, real good mind for numbers, almost like an engineering type mind with logic. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. He said that something about you and your coordination when you were a kid. Is there something about your coordination kind of being off? That sounds like a yes.
Yeah.
No, actually, there is something with my coordination.
All right, what is with your coordination?
He taught me how to play sports, and sports have gotten me through so many challenges in my lifetime. So.
Well, what he's telling me is that coordination wasn't your mainstay to begin with, but that you work really well putting it all together. Okay? Now, and I'm seeing this whole thing about trains. That can mean travel by trains or like a train set, but there's something with trains. Does this make sense to you?
Did have a train set around the Christmas tree when I was a kid, and it has a special place in my heart for sure.
Okay, so see, that's a shared memory that he's connecting with you.
Okay.
Interesting. It seems like with his passing, he didn't necessarily get to say that goodbye. Does that make sense?
Totally true.
He doesn't want you to worry about that. He said you've said goodbye 1,000 times. He hears you. He loves you. All right? And both your parents are very proud of you. And he keeps showing me the number 133 over and over. And what I'm getting about that is he's talking about your intelligence and your ability to put things together very rapidly. What I'm getting from him is that could even be your IQ level. He's giving you this 133, that you've got this very bright and incisive mind where you're capable of assessing a situation very rapidly. Now, he's focusing on, I'm seeing grilled fish. Now, grilled fish can mean a couple different things. That could mean the day of the week, Friday, or that could mean love fish or hate fish.
Okay, I hated fish. He loved fish.
Bada bing, bada boom, all right?
He ate it every Friday.
And he ate it every Friday. That's what's known as
It was fried, though, but that's all right.
Fried.
It's close enough.
Fried, grilled, okay. But that's what's known as a multiple meaning message, where one image has more than one level of significance. All right, now, you're skipping out on a lot. He says you're so focused on your work that you're kind of missing out on a lot of things in your personal life.
It's very interesting.
All right, now I probably shouldn't say this in front of all your bosses and things. However, this is kind of a stop and smell the roses. The career, the job, the work, everything is great. You're excelling there. He said, but what you're doing is you're sacrificing a lot of comfort, a lot of your own personal joy and satisfaction. And the reason that he is telling me this is by losing both your parents at such a young age, it pulled the rug right out from under you. And so what you're doing is you are trying to make sure that in some way you're almost getting their validation. You have it, you don't need it. He says, time to just enjoy your life.
Well, I'll take it. That's good stuff.
And with that...
All right.
That's incredible.
Thank you. The psychic lawyer.
Yeah, unbelievable. Thank you so much. Thank you, John,
being willing to participate.
And thank you, Mark. We really appreciate it.